Hey guys, what's up? I'm Brittany.
Hi, Maria.
Welcome to the Be More podcast.
You're roaring to go.
I'm ready to go today.
Our topic isn't like the best though.
So just like a trigger warning for friends, we're going
Yeah.
to talk about some stories that I've heard about related to gun rights and gun violence that I heard about them while driving on the radio on Hot 97.1. And the reason why they
Hot
brought up
97.
I love Hot
I
97.
love
I
Hot
love like the
97.
Rosenberg in the morning. Cracks me up. That's how you know like that my dad is a Jew from Brooklyn because I love Rosenberg. um, so they were doing their whole like their segment where they talk about how like they do the whole like you played yourself, like congratulations, you played. I don't remember what the segment is called.
Hmm.
But they talk about people who do essentially stupid things, and the topic of the week was related to gun rights and gun violence. So
On
the
Hot
original
97.
on Hot 97.1. So the original story that they brought up, there is a oh, I gotta find it. I gotta pull it up on my phone because I don't want to say the wrong thing about. Oh
Yeah.
wait, I gotta. It's funny because I looked it up and it's okay. So there is a music festival that's usually held in Atlanta, and it's been held there for like since the '90s. It's called Midtown Music Festival. Did you hear about this story at all?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, friends. So I probably wouldn't have heard about it either if I wasn't listening to at
Hot
this time. But
97.
it's a huge music festival that happens in Atlanta, and it was supposed to happen in September. And like they have like My Chemical Romance and Fallout Boy. Like it's a huge music
Oh,
festival that
okay, cool.
brings millions of dollars in revenue to the city every year. And Live Nation usually hosts it,
Hmm.
and they obviously so they usually host it in the city's Piedmont Park. And I have no idea where that is. It's this big like
Hmm.
venue that they have there. And they set a policy for the when they announced that it was going to be happening. They set a policy that weapons or explosives of any kind were not allowed on the premises, not allowed at the festival.
That's standard.
Uh-huh. So once they announced the festival back in May, a gun rights activist wrote Atlantic City Law Department demanding that the festival's permit be yanked unless it rescinded the weapon ban in accordance with the state law. Because the issue is, in Georgia, you have the right to carry.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, because the festival and Live
Oh,
Nation were trying to say, and we it makes sense why they're trying to say this because if you look at the history of what happens at these major festivals in our country, there are a lot of major events related to explosives and gun violence that has been happening at these festivals. So like they have state legs to stand on to be able to say like don't bring this
yeah.
stuff with you.
Please don't bring anything that will harm your
So
other
this
person.
person, this gun rights man, um,
Gun rights man.
wrote this
Like op-ed? Like what?
no wrote like this requirement,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
wrote a permit, or sorry, wrote to
The
the
township
department in the
or
city,
whatever. Yeah.
demanding that they are not allowed to do this. That you can, the festival
By
can't
state
continue.
law, you can't
Right,
just all of a
and
sudden not.
the argument is this is not usually an area where we're told we can't carry guns. You can't have a different requirement
Yeah,
that's opposing of what the state allows. So
I don't like this.
correct.
I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
So because he literally took them to court, like he took the festival to court about having the right to carry a gun into this festival, and he won because
He
technically,
won.
if you look at it on the state level, he's not wrong, right? You can't change. You can't tell me that I have the right to carry a gun in Georgia, but just in this place because this event is coming in and they have a permit to use the space, they're going to change the gun law.
I wonder if like this guy's even going to this festival.
He won. So because Live Nation was like, we can't tell people that they can't bring guns and explosives to our festival, they had to cancel the festival.
I don't blame them because like God
I
forbid
mean,
anything happens at this festival.
I'm so proud of them for
Mm-hmm.
not being greedy mofos and for realizing that this is a concern, right? Because I mean, red flags everywhere. You're just giving the gun light to people the red light,
Mm-hmm.
literally the gun light,
The
but
gun light.
the green light to people to do whatever they want. So, um,
That's terrifying though.
and so House Minority Leader James Beverly literally said that they canceled the event because artists and those attending don't feel safe to perform in a state with senseless gun laws. You
Senseless
say.
gun laws.
So yeah, so I'm not even reading. Wait, here's the best part. So because this whole thing happened where
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go back. So Brian Kemp, I don't even
Sure.
know who this person is. He's someone who works in oh Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, back in 2014 pushed out this I can't believe I'm reading this. It's just ridiculous. Pushed out a law that's known as the Guns Everywhere Law. That's literally the stem of all of this. It allows for firearms in places that had previously been off limits, like bars, churches, and schools. The law had been unclear on whether they could be kept out of public places like Piedmont Park. But the Supreme Court ruling in April, with this man's, you know,
Yeah.
having to, whatever,
Right.
have a whole
Right.
nipshit about the situation, um, allowed that you need to be able to ban guns. The operators have to have a long-term lease on the space. Like it has to be a space that you are residing in full time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're just using it temporarily, you can't change the laws of the state, even over gun laws. So
Great.
this amazing festival that's literally been running since 1994 in Atlanta that brings them so much money that, is a really great experience for the people who live there cannot happen because this one person was like, I want to carry a gun.
But why? You're going number one, I wonder if this guy is actually going to this festival or if he just wanted to start shit. Number two, if you are going, why do you need a gun? Why do you need a gun at this music festival? What are you doing? This is wild.
Shrug.
I don't understand people like again, what do you need a gun for?
So the hysterical premise
There's
that
security around.
97.1 took on it was like, you wanted to go, if you were somebody who wanted to go to this festival to buy a ticket and you were all
Yeah.
up in arms,
Hurt.
literally and figuratively, about not being able to carry your gun, and now you've made the whole fest, so now you can't go anyway, even if you wanted to take your gun, because now the festival is canceled. So
These
that
people
that
about
story.
these people with like these gun rights situations. Like why are you so pressed on having a gun? I just don't understand the argument. I
I mean,
truly just don't understand.
are you're that scared?
Of what?
That's got to be the only. Who knows?
I'm just mad.
Who
This is so
knows?
stupid.
Isn't this ridiculous? Okay, so now here's the next story, and this story.
You have stories? You have
Oh wait,
multiple?
there's another one.
Oh my god.
This story makes me just sad.
Okay.
So actually, I wonder if you've heard. Have you heard about this McDonald's story yet?
Oh, is this recent or like a long time
Yeah.
ago? No.
So
Oh
again,
god.
this is a big. This is going to be a bigger trigger warning, friends. I can't. I can't believe.
Trigger warning for this whole episode.
I can't believe that I'm telling you this story and this happened in real life.
Okay, great.
So essentially, a woman goes into a McDonald's in New York.
Oh, New York. Okay, great.
In New York.
Closer.
They have exactly where it is, but it doesn't really matter. A woman goes into a McDonald's in New York and orders French fries.
Sure.
She's mad because her French fries are cold.
God help me.
So
Oh, what are you
she
about to tell
complains.
me right now?
Wait, she complains about the French fries and gets another order of French fries, and she leaves and she realizes the French fries are still cold.
Oh my
So she
god.
comes back, not happy.
Okay.
This is the story that's being shared. Apparently, I can't. I just can't. She calls her son and tells her son how she's having this issue at McDonald's. They're giving her cold French fries. They're playing with her. Blah 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 blah. Her son shows up. Her 23-year-old son shows up.
It's
Starts
New
in a
York.
fight with the kids behind the register and shoots one of the kids in the neck.
Oh,
Within
oh
24 hours, this person is hospitalized and killed.
oh my god, in the neck. I mean, shooting someone over fries is just ridiculous. Are you serious right now?
This
In New
this
York?
this is a legit story. They just broke the like they just released on what's today?
Today's Saturday.
Literally yesterday. I think this happened
That's
on Tuesday or Wednesday.
wild.
Yesterday he died. The kid that
That's
he shot.
wild.
So now he's going to prison
Well,
for a murder.
yeah.
Um,
That's
and
that's
his
murder.
mother's going to, I mean, I don't know what something's happening to his mom.
Like an
And
accomplice of murder.
apparently there's more people involved in this.
Yeah.
Um, I, I,
To be, oh my God, to be that
this
that
is,
poor kid's family.
this is
He was
disgusting.
he was literally just working at McDonald's,
This is
and now
disgusting.
what? New York also has very strict gun laws, not as strict as New Jersey. I feel like New Jersey has very strict gun laws.
Yeah.
And I heard that New York is also trying to have like open carry laws soon. Not that like I don't have any source. I was just talking to people and they're like, I think this is happening soon. I'm like, that's terrible. Like they're right there.
Not good.
Um, but a 23-year-old with a gun, how did he get this? Number
Well, I
one.
think a lot of it is also there's an investigation into that too, right?
Yeah. And number two, okay, okay, great. You have a gun. It's probably, let's just assume it's legally, like, he registered it. He's like
French
legally whatever.
fries.
Exactly. Number two, like you killed someone over your mom not getting
French
hot
fries.
French fries. Go to another McDonald's. I don't know what to tell you.
French fries.
Get a refund from this McDonald's. Go to another one.
Ha, I don't.
And like these, and this is what
You
I
took
feel so
two
bad.
lives. Two lives were taken. The life of the person that got shot and the
Mm-hmm.
life of the person that is going to prison.
Your son.
Probably more people over
Yeah.
French fries.
Not even that. It's just like, I mean, we worked at a Dunkin' when we were
That's
in
one of
high
the first
school.
things that I was thinking about.
Like
Do you
these
imagine someone
kids,
pulling a gun on you if you didn't
I
make
would
it correctly?
I run. I would, that drive-through window, just
Mm-hmm.
jump in like
Yep,
out
yep,
there.
yep.
No,
Amen.
but like, these like fast food workers are all children.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I
you're
think the
killing a
person was like
child,
in the 20s too, though. Like a young
right?
adult.
Even like shift managers are like 20-year-olds. Like these aren't like, not that like a grown person versus like a younger adult like is any different, like whatever life
Yeah.
wise, like the value of life, but like they're young. Like,
There was some speculation that the employees were kind of like messing with the lady still, which like made her more mad. Like they were doing it on purpose
they're
and like
children.
right. So
They're
that's
children and they
and
probably couldn't care less because like they're
it's
working at McDonald's.
another. It's a super. I think concept. When we'll talk about this, I wanted to bring this up later too. Consequences are important for kids to learn for this exact reason, but like this is a very extreme. Like this is not an acceptable way to like this is the thing that all of these stupid TikTok challenges, all of these like I don't give an F about anybody else
Mhm.
mentality that a lot of young people are starting to have. You're dealing with people who are frustrated and fearful and aggravated and at already like short fuse, like those are
Mhm.
not two good things that go together. But this is not. I don't need to be telling kids that if you don't act, if you don't get your shit together and if you don't act right, you're going to get shot. Like that's
That's
ridiculous.
that's extreme.
Correct.
Like I can't believe that that's even like a thing that we have to be afraid of in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you might get shot at your place of work. What?
Mm-hmm.
What? Am I in the middle of a war? What do you mean?
Yeah, so those are
You've
the
got
two
to be kidding me.
stories that I heard about, and I still don't know how to get my head around the fact that like that scenario sounds like something ridiculous that someone would do in
But
like when we
Grand Theft
were,
Auto,
yes,
GTA
that's
8 or whatever.
exactly what we would do in GT because we could, and it was like it was funny
But
and whatever,
here,
but like
we'll go this direction. Do
that's
you
so
buy
funny.
the do you buy the argument that video games are what's causing these violence
I don't
tendencies?
I don't think it's I don't think it's 100%, but I think that we're full of shit if we think that it's not psychologically creating some type of delusional reality for people to live in, and the fact that you live in a world that doesn't actually have consequences, and if you're spending so much time in there, you're blurring the lines of reality, and you're your psychosis doesn't necessarily know
Hmm.
the difference. Your ego doesn't know the difference.
You know, this has nothing to do with this because it was like a documentary on. It was supposed to be about simulation theory, but it wasn't. It was about the Matrix.
Okay.
Me and Ashley watched it, thinking about it was like simulation theory, but it was really just like a couple like bros talking about their theories on it, and then this one guy that was like so into the Matrix that like he ended up killing his family because he thought he was in the Matrix. It was like wild. So like not even video games, but also movies. Let's just put that out there too. Like he like thought
We
that like the Matrix would save him if he just took whatever pill and like he tried to find that. It was wild.
we just talked about in
Media.
our last episode about how we all live within our own versions of reality. And what's even scarier is that if you think
Hmm.
about the upcoming generations that are spending more time in virtual realities than they are in real reality, that is shaping their emotional everything. It's shaping
Hmm.
them as a person. To say that, I think it's too easy and too simple and trying to make it black and white to be able to say that it's the reason, like it is the reason why, right? But I think that you're also fooling yourself if you don't realize the depths of the influence that growing up playing violent video games or really any spending too much time in any virtual reality is going to the impact that that's going to have on your mental and
Your
emotional
psyche.
state, right? Like I think that we're messing with ourselves. And I literally, it's funny, I you know me, I don't spend a lot of time um
Hmm.
on social media in general. And I was like
Same now.
at good for you. I was looking at something that was like, we don't talk about addiction is so easy. We've talked about this in previous episodes. Addiction is such an easy thing for our mind to set into because our mind wants to be able to run on autopilot. We want to get that dopamine release. We want to be in that state of euphoria all the time. And we talk about addiction to drugs and addiction to all of these things that are so bad for us, but the conversation we don't have enough is the addiction to technology and social media and those addictions to not having to live in your real reality. It's still an addiction, it's still a sense of escapism. And we don't talk about that being an issue because we say that's an issue and we have to change our way of life, and all of the technology and all the capitalists
Hmm.
like companies that oversee that, we're changing our whole culture and we're changing that relationship. It becomes a negative relationship. And you're never going to see a president or anybody in power be like a war on video games. Like that's never going to be a thing that happens. But we're fooling ourselves to say that that doesn't have some type of influence on us, and especially with the levels of violence. You're ex- uh,
As a video gamer, as a gamer, right? I think it is the blur of like how mentally unwell are you to begin with. Like I'm also very mentally unwell. I'm not gonna like knock that out,
yeah,
but to the point where it's like you blur your realities between the
yeah,
two. That I think that's what happens. It's like, oh, I can do this here, but also that coupled with like if you bring it back to like the real world, like there has to be something already like in within you that is enraged or like traumatized or like something that like you're not getting the proper help and your escapism is your video games or like
yeah.
movies or like whatever.
But I think you're right. It's relevant to things that we see on TV and stuff too, because I mean, I'm a huge Marvel person, but there are
Hmm.
some things that you watch that are extremely violent and extremely gory, and there's not enough of a conversation about how this is not real life, and like even if you think you're doing it because you're right, or there's a just reason for it, like it doesn't make it okay to do this to people. There's again, I think it comes back to what we talked about in our last episode of that like inflated sense of self-importance and not enough
Hmm.
empathy and understanding of where other people are. It's just it's complicated, but like if it's so easy, if someone, if any single person, any human, any person that's a part of our race can get shot over french fries,
Girl.
like
This is terrifying.
i, I like like I want to laugh and like I want to cry because like thinking about it, like I can feel myself like getting like what is going on right now, like I'm starting to tear up. It doesn't feel real, like it feels like we're what the fuck is going on right now.
Well, it's because, the Second Amendment, like people that like are defending the Second Amendment are so powerful.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many lobbyists, people that are lobbying for gun rights and people to have guns and all this stuff. But again, I don't understand the core issue that I'm having understanding this whole thing is like, what do you need a gun for? Or like not even like, fine, have like a pistol, but like the assault rifles, the like big guns that are like only found in video games, you know, or like out at war.
And that's
Like,
part of the thing too, right? I wonder if it's interesting to me when I spend time with kids and they talk about something related to video games and the
mm-hmm,
detail that they understand of weapons and the
yeah,
ability to be able to talk about specifically guns,
mm-hmm.
they wouldn't would we have that education if it wasn't for that? Would children have access to that type of education if they weren't getting it through video games?
Saying I'm sorry, I like got
So
distracted
like
for a second. I'm not gonna lie.
knowing what knowing the different types of guns and knowing how they work,
Oh,
knowing what their purpose is and knowing their parts and all of that stuff. Would they know all of that if they didn't have access to the
if
video games
like
that were teaching
Call of
them?
Duty and like GTA weren't a thing, I don't think they would
I don't
to
think.
that
I
extent.
mean, and
Because
to
like
I mean,
I
I'm a
play
very small percent. I'm a very small percentage, and I don't count on the grand scheme of stuff. I know I did never played any of those video games. I have no concept or no
I
understanding
play
at all.
look, I play Apex, which is like kind of in the simplest terms because you don't play video games, but you probably see Dan play video games like Fortnite, but like not with the building and more technically and like visually like looks like combat.
Cool.
So like
Why do you want to be in that situation? Is what I don't understand.
so like for me, I play with my sisters. It's like a 3 person, whatever, blah blah blah. But in essence, right, like we play this sometimes just to log on and play a couple rounds. But the detail of like, okay, this is an assault rifle, this is a semi-automatic, these are all the parts that go with it. And I'm like, why do I know this? Like, you know, like
You're getting an education that you don't need.
not even that, like that you're like not even thinking about that you're
And then
just
it's funny
getting it,
how
you know?
we ask these questions, right? Of like, how do kids know about these things? And why do kids have access to this? Like, this is why kids have access to this. And I'm granted, I'm not going to say that, like, if you took video games away, if they really wanted to know about it, could they find it online in some other fashion? Sure, they totally could. But the number of kids who are growing up with this understanding and this education would be much smaller because they wouldn't, unless it's in their lives and they're getting access to it from someone in a real life experience, it wouldn't even cross their minds, right?
Yeah.
Like there would be a much smaller percentage of kids and people in general who had an understanding. And it would be,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the entire, the gun right situation would be different because like you said those lines blur so quickly when you're playing a video game where you're literally having to kill for your life. If you're in real life and someone's like, well, you're not going to have the right to a gun, you cannot tell me that your brain is going to be able to disassociate those two things and not think like I need a gun for safety. It's not, your brain doesn't know how to do that unless you're in control of having your awareness. And this is the thing.
Is
Will
this because
die on
sorry.
this hill. I want to hear what you have to say, but I will die on this hill. We do not realize, we do not realize how our brains are influenced and how much influence things have on our brains without us even knowing it. And this is a huge thing that I think is a problem because there's so much of it happening that we're not even able to process and realize what's going on in our heads around it.
Well, is this like the what's his name? Kyle something or other. Do you remember that guy that like went to a protest, a Black Lives Matter protest, and just like shot like 3 people, and he went to court and everything was found like not guilty, or like
You
this
want
was
to
like a couple of years ago.
the worst part about what the realization that I'm having right now is my brain is literally trying to filter through all of those
Who? Which
things
one?
that are similar. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
which one?
sucks.
Isn't that
That
awful?
sucks. But yes,
Um, these are all young kids that are doing this, right? Like
right.
23, younger, whatever. Like the video game industry came in around the 80s, let's just say, right?
They've grown up with it.
Right. And like with them growing up with it, your brain isn't fully like developed till you're like 25.
Correct. And
Like,
talk about not having, I mean, we've both openly admitted that we had no sense of self-awareness until after our teenage years, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
how are you creating any separation? How are they able to create any separation, any
Of like,
distinctions of
oh,
real
this
life and
doesn't,
reality?
yeah, this isn't gonna affect my real life. Like, this is just a, you know, I'm just doing this because I that's what I've been doing every night playing video games on my Xbox.
And it's interesting how, as we're, starting this conversation, we're talking about it, we're
Yeah.
like, oh, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. But like,
Hmm.
these children are constantly exposed to gruesome, violent things all the time. And it's
It's
like,
like, yeah, it's like nothing for them.
it's, I, so okay, so we have to get away from guns because I literally can't believe that this is the world we live in. So talking about going into the next story that I wanted to bring up to you.
Yeah, let's get away from this
So
now.
again, and I think this can connect to video games also, right? In video games, what real consequence is there?
You die and you get your,
And you
it's a restart.
respawn,
Yeah,
right? And
you
you come back to
restart.
life, and you can always start over again. And anything goes bad, it's not a huge deal. Like there's an emotional. That's another thing too, right? Like I feel like you're not, because you respawn, because you can always restart, there's no actually coping with the emotions that come with things that don't go well, right? Because
Hmm.
you can just like either push it away or forget about it. You don't have to do any like processing of emotion.
Hmm.
So there's this video, again, not the culprit, but not helping the situation of younger generations being raised without actually understanding what consequences, but then learning about like extreme consequences if someone pulls a gun on you in a freaking McDonald's. So
Hmm.
to give you an example, I we live in a world right now that is all about, especially if you work with children, that, and I'm sure we get it too in like the workplace with like you have to make the sandwich of like good compliment,
Oh.
the bad news is in there, say it like it's not really there, and then another compliment, right? The sandwich technique.
Yeah.
um we try so hard to make everything have to be positive. You can't say anything bad. You can't do anything that's too intense. You can't do it. It has to be positive, positive, positive. And I this concept across the board screwed me up so much,
Hmm.
but specifically talking about consequence. The whole approach of working with younger generations and trying to make everything have to be positive all the goddamn time, I 100% believe is not acceptable and is part of the problem. So here's an example.
Hmm.
You have a first grade kid, right? First
Sure.
grade boy, doesn't has a lot of stuff going on, has a hard time, is still trying to figure out processing their
Like
emotions, right?
6 years old.
Right. Needs the space to be able to do that, all that good stuff, right? Turns around just because he's frustrated for whatever reason, turns around and both hands shoves a kid who's smaller than him to the point of where
Yeah.
it looked like a Marvel movie. Like the kid went flying
Flying.
and
Oh,
in
poor
hard on
thing.
his back, completely like what just happened, right? This poor child was just like the one that came out, was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And what's your response in that moment? What do you
Like
do?
if you're an adult and you saw that,
Right. Like what do you do?
I am very I don't have any patience for children, so I would grab the kid that like pushed and be like, "What is wrong with you?" And just absolutely just be like, "What is wrong with you?" Like
And what happens after? Like what comes after?
some
What does
fighting
that
and
kid
like
deal with
words and just
afterward?
like, "What do you mean? Like I didn't do anything?" All the bullshit. Like and I'm like, "No, no, no, no."
And like
Rip him apart from the group and be like, "You're going somewhere else."
you don't go along with the day, and the rest of his day should be different, right? He should be, you don't go on with life like nothing ever happened
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
just completely disregard the situation and try to be like, "Oh, like I'm I can understand and I think it's really good that we've come to the point where we try to get them to communicate more, right? Where it's like, what happened? What are you feeling? What's happening right now that you feel like you need to do that?
Hmm.
That's all fine and dandy, but you're also talking to a 6-year-old who probably doesn't know the language or isn't capable of really communicating that quite yet.
If they
And,
haven't, if their home life doesn't do that.
right,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Do I think that there needs to be more violence in response to that? Absolutely not, right? You don't want to do that, right? You don't
Hmm.
want to encourage like bad behavior with more bad behavior because then they're just getting attention, they're excited about it. But to act like everything is fine and try
Hmm.
to do some positive reinforcement spin on the fact that this child, the 6-year-old, thinks that it's okay to violently respond to having a lot of emotions
Hmm.
and just let him continue to do that multiple time after multiple time again without any type of intervention is not acceptable. So,
Agreed. Yeah.
in my mind, if you're going to consistently act this way, you're going to deal with a consequence. Maybe you don't get to do something that you enjoy doing for 5 minutes. Maybe I don't know, some type of freaking consequence where we have to disrupt your normal cycle so that we can have a conversation about it and you can realize like I probably shouldn't be doing this. Or if I don't want to deal with this result, I shouldn't choose to have this action. And children learn through repetition. So you can either teach a child that I can keep pushing people and I can keep getting mad and frustrated and not saying anything and not changing my behavior and everything's fine and dandy and I'm just going to beat the crap out of every other kid that I'm around and they think that's okay. Or you could change your response and create some type of actual consequence. What kills me about this, and I've had conversations before of like, we don't want them to have anything negative. The whole trying to
But that's
protect kids
dumb.
from something
That's
negative,
dumb.
I
I'm
don't
sorry. That's
understand.
stupid.
When the real life situations that are happening now are if you choose to be an asshole, right? So I don't think anybody is deserving of getting shot in any
In
situation.
any
But if
situation.
you choose to do something where your intent, and again, don't know the whole story, don't quote me on this, but if these kids behind the counter were really screwing with this lady with these french fries, like you choose to do a bad thing, and the consequence, I'm sorry, but there's no positive spin on the consequence of getting shot for your actions.
Hmm.
So why are we trying to tell these kids or create circumstances for these kids where there's only positive response and only positive
I hate that shit.
intervention and redirection when the real world has real life fucking consequences? If you are a grown adult, if you're an 18-year-old, and that's something that's funny too, right? You're telling these kids and you're trying to create positive situations when they're choosing, not good choices, but then you send them to a high school that's like, we absolutely don't tolerate violence, and then they get expelled because you started at a young age teaching them that positive redirection. There's no actual consequence to their actions. I don't understand this whole positive only response when you don't make a good choice. I don't get it.
I just think, I mean, this is a different generation now, right? Like the ones that are growing up. So like we got the, what is it?
I
Flip
got
parents?
my ass handed to me.
Yeah, we got our ass
Ass
handed.
handed to me.
like like so it's a generational gap, so
Was
fine.
that
But
right either? No.
no, but I
Not
think
right.
the
Like
thing is like what the millennials are now having children and this is their children. I don't know if like that's the split, whatever, right? And like, is it them correcting, right? Is it them correcting what they're,
overcorrecting.
yeah, just too much correcting. And like, I don't think that it should always be positive. I also think like you did something, you are getting punished.
Like you
Whether
still
that
have
be go sit in your room for five
consequences.
minutes. Like I'm not saying like you're gonna be punished by like I'm gonna like hit you type situation. Like
Right.
there's still something you can do, like take away their video games, like take away something. But I also don't like, I just don't like the sandwich thing either. I'm like, no,
I don't
just say
I
it straight.
it I remember when we first started learning about it in grad school as
Not and like just the
offer
real world, because
response.
like I've had that happen to me. I'm like, no, you can just tell me. Like I
And
don't need,
it feels manipulative and it feels
right,
ingenuine and it's so
because
frustrating to
I don't do that to my staff, right?
right.
Like I don't do that to, and I'm like what happened here?
Right.
Like let's correct it. Like
And
I'm not mad
why
at you. Like, but that's the thing, right? Like it
mm,
triggers the brain to be like, oh, they're mad at me. Like no, like it's just like do your job or like do whatever. Like not even at work. Like oh, you did something, like let's just correct this. Like I'm
And I
not mad or I'm not, I'm just indifferent. I'm just like, let's just do this, get this over with so we can just not do this again.
and it
Like
doesn't have to
go
be.
through the circle. They're the cycle.
Why does, and that's the thing that I'm seeing too, and I've seen a couple instances of it over the summer, when something when something does go wrong or a bad choice is made,
Hmm.
and even the thought or the possibility of getting in trouble can't be handled and can't be tolerated.
It's wild.
There's no coping, and it's, I 100% feel that it really is an American parenting, child problem, because there's such a bubble around coming up generations of protection, of trying to protect them from things. You can't protect them from the consequences of their actions. I'm sorry, that's just asinine to me. But like, thank God we live in a country. I mean, I was going to say a country that is safe, but that is a blunt lie. Like, how how do these kids live in a world where you're trying to put them in a bubble, but the everyday social situations that they're in are sometimes worse than the video games they're playing in, with the like manipulation and emotional fuckery. Like, I don't even know what word to put in there. And
Hmm.
then we're also in a state of like physically being unsafe all the time. That's a lot to ask of a kid. Why can't we just be like, look, you made a bad choice. Here's a consequence to your bad choice. And now 5 minutes you have to be miserable and unhappy. Like, and then
Because
we'll
well,
talk about, we'll have the conversation.
because I feel like parents, well, I'm not gonna generalize, but like I've seen parents not want that. Like they don't want to rile up their kids because like it's annoying to them to deal with. But I'm like, you had the kid. Like this is part of your parenting. You know
Right,
what I'm
you
saying?
don't get
Like
to decide. They're
it's
not gonna
also
like you
like
all the time. They're not gonna like you all the time. They're not.
correct. Like they're humans. Like they're it's just within everyone's nature to just like feel every emotional like thing.
And that's part of the problem too, is that you want to love your kids and you want your kids to love you. You don't want them to like you, and there has to be a difference, right? Love is
100%.
unconditional. Love is unconditional. Like, you make a bad choice, you make it a bad choice. You're going to do better next time. Let's talk about this, and that's fine. I still love you. But I think that there's this fear and worry about being liked, because there's conditions of how you only like me if I behave well. You only like me if I do this, and if I
Mm-hmm.
don't do that, then like you're not gonna like me, and that's gonna
Wild. Wild.
it's wild. And
But
I,
people don't understand when they're like signing up to be a parent.
correct. And
Yeah.
the and it's going to be my argument going forward, because I've had conversations with people who are like in positions above me or in positions with social work, and like who claim, like who believe in the like only positive reinforcement, only positive environment thing. And my response going forward is going to be like, so when this kid grows up and wants to screw around with somebody over French fries, they're going to get shot. Like, that's going
Damn.
to be
Jesus.
that that. And I know, Jesus, it's ridiculous, but I'm not even making that statement up. Like, that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
reality of the possibility of what these kids are growing up in. And God knows, by the time they're in their teens in another 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we autocorrect and something good comes over this. Please, God. But how you don't get to say, I'm going to raise my kid in a perfect world and I'm going to create all of these perfect circumstances and I'm going to protect them from everything and feeling anything that's bad. And then the reality of them, talk about like fucking Jesus, psychosis of like being totally disengaged. You raise them in this, but they live in the complete opposite of that. How are you preparing these kids to be functioning adults? I mean, that's a rhetorical question.
Don't answer that.
Oi.
Wow. Girl, I don't know. I just again the core of this issue for me is like, why the fuck do we need all these guns? That's my question of the day.
And here's, okay, ready? Here's the last thing that I wanted to bring up. So this is not related to any of this stuff, but it is related to how it connects to this idea. The concept of, there's a lot of stuff that subliminally gets into our brains before we realize it at a really young age, and the dangers of all of those things not being, it's funny, right? You want to protect your kids so bad and you don't want them to experience anything, but it's okay if at 6 years old they're shooting each other and playing Fortnite. That doesn't make any
Fortnite.
sense. Anyway, paradox. So the subliminal messaging that kids get at a young age starts influencing them long before they realize it starts influencing them.
Oh,
So
100%.
it's happening.
Their brains, like they
They have
can't
no
keep up
idea.
with their brains.
Right. They have no
Yeah.
idea. It's totally overrunning them. Um, so I had a moment where I was like, oh poop. Like not good moment. So I was at camp and I was working with pre-K kids. So these
Oh
kids were
god.
like 3, 4. And we were playing a game where I take like different hats out of a
Sure.
box and then they wear the hat and they have to act like whatever that hat is related to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a chef's hat and I had like a farmer's hat and I had
Sure.
all of these hats, mix of boys and girls in this group. So I put the construction hat on a girl, not a problem, right? Not even thinking about it. Like I put the construction hat, not even thinking about it. Put the
Sure.
construction hat on a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Put the firefighter hat on a boy. Not paying attention, not a big deal. They don't care. Nothing's happening.
Right.
So then I get to cat ears.
Okay.
And one of the little boys comes up and I'm like, okay. I was like, do you know what this is? Like what would have ears like this? And he goes, a cat. And I'll go, okay, so you're gonna let's see if your friends can guess what you are. And he goes, I don't want to be a cat. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay. And he's pointing to other stuff. I was like, no. I was like, this is what you picked first. Like, this is what you're gonna do. And he goes, I don't wanna. And I was like, okay, I guess you just won't have a turn right now. That's fine. We'll try again later.
Mm-hmm.
Another boy comes up.
Gets the cat?
Same thing.
He just doesn't want a
I want
cat.
to be a cat.
Okay.
And I was like,
What?
okay. And then he's pointing to like, what else did I have in the oh, he pointed to the cowboy hat. And I was like, but you like, no, you like,
Yeah. What's up with this cat?
And the thing was, 2 minutes prior to doing this, we were playing a game where we were pretending to be different animals.
Oh.
And
So
we're all pretending to be cats. So like, So then it happens again. Another boy comes up.
another boy?
I don't want to be a cat. And I'm looking at these kids and it dawns on me like, this is a gender issue.
Did the girls not have an issue with the cat? Like, did you end up?
But I would not let the girls. Oh, I did a whole.
You did a whole. Did you have a whole like psychological test on these children for your own amusement?
So it wasn't even for my amusement. It's because this is a literal issue. So I put this is a like society. This is a societal issue, and you know how I am as a person. So like we're addressing it.
You're just gonna address it right now.
It's down, and there's like 9 of them, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, "Are there girl cats?" And they're all like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Are there boy cats too? Do we have boy cats?"
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, just like dead silence. And one of the boys was like, "No, there's no such thing as a boy cat." And I was like, "Really?" Because I live with 2 boy cats.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are boy cats too.
Mm-hmm.
And the counselors are like looking at me funny, right? These are all
they're like
these are all counselors that are like teenagers and like
your fellow counselors like, oh, here goes Brittany again.
And I was like, so why is it that boys don't want to be cats and put the cat ears on?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they're all little, so like they don't even
they have no idea,
no awareness
of what's happening. They were
like,
right now.
well, cat ears are for girls. And now, if you think about,
I mean,
in society
that we live in,
big thing that girls wear cat ears, and I was like, when we're here and we're in this space, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
we were all pretending to be cats before, but how come when we put the ears on, we couldn't do it?
Mm-hmm.
And it shook me for a lot of reasons, as an LGBTQ plus ally,
yeah,
as a person who has values that believes that like there shouldn't be a difference. It shook me as a person. And one of the little girls, I was like, does there have to be things for boys and girls, or can boys and girls just I was like, we didn't have an issue when the girls were wearing construction hats or fire hats. Like, why did it just happen with the ears? And one of the little girls goes, I have boy toys and girl toys at home. Like, she's so cute. And I was like, so aren't they just toys?
Yeah.
And she was like, uh-huh. Like she had a moment. But it took 4 years old. They
already know. Yeah.
Being programmed that certain things are for girls and certain things are for boys. And what's interesting is that they're the only age group that is blended boys and girls at all of camp.
Really?
As they get older, they get split into boys and girls because they have to change in and out of bathing suits and stuff like that. And like one of the counselors caught on to what I was doing and was like, no, like we don't have to have girls. And the other counselors, I think, were just so young that they were like,
Oh, they were just like,
can't
what?
believe this is happening right now. And
Because they're so young, they're like, oh, like were we programmed that way when we
right.
were,
And it's like, does
Yeah.
this really matter? Because they're in preschool. But like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it matters they're in preschool. It's starting when they're in preschool.
It's
This is a
starting when they're like 2 years
conversation,
old.
right? This is a conversation that they understand. Once you bring it to their attention, they understand a lot and they're taking it a lot. So if
Yeah,
you
they
bring
can
it to their
process it.
attention, and it's funny because afterwards I went over and talked to one of my colleagues and I was like, I need you to tell me what you would have done in this situation because part of me is like, should I
Did you
not
go too
have done
far?
that?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But like I didn't yell at anybody for anything. I just wanted
No,
them to realize
you're
like
just
this is a
stating.
situation we're dealing with
Yeah.
right now. Like I don't want you to be gender. Like I don't want your imagination to be limited
Hmm.
to I can only do this because I'm a boy or a girl. That is suffocating.
It's antiquated now.
That
Like
is
that thinking is
suffocating
so
for a
like,
child when their imagination and their creativity, which is exactly what I'm trying to foster in the programs that I run for camp, their imagination and creativity should be endless and limitless. They shouldn't be 4 years old and coming in and saying, I can't do this because I'm this.
well, that was my whole, now we're getting to this. Growing up, it was like that, right? Like, and
Right.
like I'm such a tomboy. Like, I like sports. I like video games. It wasn't like a girl thing to do, but I'm still a
Yeah.
girl that it was just like so restricting on my personhood that like
Yeah.
now it's more inclusive where it's like there are a lot more gender fluid people, a lot more
Yeah.
non-binary people that are
Thank
coming
God.
out. Yeah, and are like, no, you can be whatever you want to
And
be.
it
Like,
doesn't matter.
it
It
doesn't
doesn't
matter,
matter.
but like these kids are still being taught.
It's what
Like
was
at like 2 years old.
alarming. What's alarming to me that even in a space where we've been setting up the space for weeks where they can feel like they can come in and it's a safe space to be creative and be imaginative, even in a space like that, you still
Still
feel you
restricting
can't.
like their
That's a
brains.
problem.
Yeah, and their
That's
brains
a
can't
problem.
process. Yeah.
And it was hard for me. So I was talking to a colleague about this, and the colleague's like older than me, different generation, a couple generations ahead, and even they
Yeah.
were like, I think that's, like maybe people were uncomfortable, but like I would have wanted to do the same thing in that moment. Like these kids need to realize that they don't need that. They don't need that in their lives. And it's hard for me too. I very much respect, even though my brother I know he had a hard time with it. I respect my sister because
Hmm.
brother, when my nephews go and play dress up, they wear dresses, they are fairies, they are
That's
police
cute.
officers. Like their closet has everything in it and like
Yeah,
they
why
wear
not?
polish and they get to make the decision and it's not a problem. Like it doesn't even need to be a conversation of like you can and you can't. It's like here it is, just do whatever you want. And
Yeah.
yay, you're fostering creativity and imagination without having the limits of a gender label on it.
Yeah, because what does it matter if a boy wants to go play dress up and it's an actual dress? Like,
Especially
what does it
in
matter?
especially in an environment where you're trying to cultivate creativity and
Hmm.
imagination. It's like you're
Hmm.
putting a cap on that capability, and then you wonder why kids have a difficult time solving or handling their emotions in a difficult. You wonder why a kid goes into a situation where they feel, especially a boy, they feel a strong emotion, and the only way that they know how to take it out is
It's
to be
anger.
angry because they've been trained to just be angry in those moments because there's been no ability to tap into their creativity and imagination in a moment when they're feeling a lot of emotions and feel something other than anger. Like people, these things are not different. There is not a difference. And that's, again, a psychological understanding that we overlook so much of the time. There is a very blurred line between I'm in a situation where I'm standing in a closet and I want to pick a dress or a pantsuit or whatever. It doesn't even matter. I want to pick something that's feminine or masculine looking versus I'm
Hmm.
going to step into an emotional situation and I'm going to choose to be gentle and be expressive in what I'm feeling, or I'm going to be really hard and stoic and angry about what I'm feeling. If you think that there's a distinctive line between those two situations being completely different, it is extremely important that you take a look at the way the brain works in early child psychology because there's no difference there. You're still trying to gender, you're still trying to limit and fix and put into a box emotional responses to something. It's the same thing.
Period. Period.
Mm.
Look,
That
man,
was all my stuff from this week. There was a lot of stuff
that's a
happened,
lot.
man.
That's
A
a
lot of
lot.
stuff happened this week.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there is hope because to have those kids, some of those kids were going to walk away from that situation and nothing, right? But
And
a
go back to
couple of
their,
those
go
kids,
back to their parents that, like, do
right, go
whatever.
back to their normal,
Fine.
machine that they live in and nothing's going to change.
Fine. That's
But a
fine.
couple of those kids had a moment, like especially that little girl that was like, "Oh yeah, they're all just toys." Like, eh, I poked a little hole in that
And
balloon,
that's more than enough.
and that was the moment
Mm-hmm.
I, as an adult who has really strong beliefs and values and like everybody belongs and there doesn't need to be a difference,
Yeah, of course.
I was like, then I did my job. And no one walked away like sad or crying or upset. Like I didn't want anybody to feel bad. I just wanted them to just have a moment to be like, whoa, what is going on right now?
And you did your job, so like
And
that's all you can
that's
ask for.
when you work with other people, whether it's children or other people in general, I think that, well, especially with children, a part of your job is to help them have that guidance, that safety, and that to help them build that sense of awareness because you're trying to, yes, am I working with them because I want them to be like little actors and I want them to have acting skills? Yeah, but like I want them to develop like full functioning range of emotional capacity and
Mm-hmm.
full skill sets that they're going to use in life. Like
Yeah, not just in acting.
it's more than me. Yeah, I'm not just teaching them to whatever specific codified area that I'm in. You're teaching a whole freaking human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's like parenting. You're
especially
parenting a
yeah,
whole freaking human, or you're
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 parenting them for like that.
you're mentoring or working with a colleague, professional, and they're a whole freaking human.
Yeah, to have emotion outside of the professional or, whatever setting. Agreed.
And as a
Yeah.
person, as a professional, as a teacher, in all capacities, that's the stuff that I live for. Like, yeah, you learned how to be a cat, cool, but like the moments, the deeper moments of what's going on between the lines and the context of the content is
Yeah.
where like I live.
Mm.
And I hope that one day I could help be a part of someone's life who would never pull a gun on somebody over french fries.
I'm sure, indirectly you will be with all these kids. That's, they won't know, they won't realize it, but I mean, you implant these things in them and, you know.
For sure.
Hmm.
And I think that all of us just need more of that in our lives. And I will say this, I'm not, do I make right decisions on things all the time? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
And the only way that I feel better about the work that I do is because I do work on myself. So that I
Hmm.
hope that I make the next right decision
Right.
in any teaching situations or like social situations. Like that's my goal.
Hmm.
I'm gonna start crying again
This is the second time
because
you're gonna start crying again.
I'm thinking about like
What, growing up?
this situation, like the reality that we like. I can't get over
Oh.
the fact that like we live in a world that like this stuff happens, but like we need to do something about it. And the only way that we cannot feel like helpless about the fact that this
Hmm.
ridiculous bullshit that people are fighting to be able to hold on to their guns so that if they're frustrated they can use it against somebody, we are the only line of defense to be able to do something about it, and that starts with the way that we treat one another and the way that we raise people and how they treat one another.
Yeah,
So if
100%.
we don't do anything about it, nothing is
It
going to
nothing's gonna
change.
change.
And
Yeah.
that's why I am emotional because I believe in that, and it's frustrating to think that you these situations that seem small, right? And talk about being like nihilistic. This is literally a perfect example of what we were talking about last week, right? Nothing matters when the world is the way that it is. But if you can somehow make an impact on one person, like that's your importance in being here. And like I don't want to give up on that. Nihilistic as I get, as like whatever, it doesn't matter as I get. We need to keep feeding that fire.
Hmm.
Feed your
I'm not even
fire.
not even gonna add anything more because you might start crying or something.
You,
But agreed in every every
Jesus.
which way.
All right. Well, clearly today was a trigger episode for me.
Yeah.
Oh. But I hope you took something good away from it. And if you feel frustrated, if you feel
Grief.
yes, whatever you walk away with feeling, I hope that you give yourself the space to be able to process it and maybe heal. I mean, I'm talking about this, I might be saying most of this to myself right now, but I feel like hopefully it relates to somebody else. Give yourself the time to heal with it and process with it. And then if it's something that stirs you up so much, like make the next right choice to have an impact.
Period.
Thanks
Okay.
so much for joining us, you guys. We'll talk to you in our next episode.
Okay, bye.